Hello everyone, Andre here from SWL. Welcome to episode 15 of my series, the SWL DXing News Report. In this podcast, I talk about radio-related news, frequency changes, new stations, closures, and anything else that might interest DXers. An RSS feed link is also available via Spotify. It is in the video description. In this week's episode, I talk about the DXing program Wavescan being dropped from AWR programming, a quick end to Poland's experiment with AI radio presenters, more money for BBC World Service from the British government, lots of frequency news on Shortwave, I have a reception report from Robert, and I end with the usual propagation forecast. The very popular DXing program Wavescan used to be broadcast on AWR, but it seems as if AWR has dropped this program completely after most AWR programs left shortwave on Saturday, the 26th of October. Wavescan has not been heard on the remaining AWR transmissions from Guam, but Wavescan can still be heard on other radio stations. You can hear it on Voice of Hope Africa on Sundays at 0700 UTC on 9680 kHz and at 1800 UTC on 4965 kHz. It can also be heard on WRMI on various frequencies and at various times, including at 0930, 1530 and 1830 UTC on 9955 kHz on Sundays, and then on Tuesdays at 0030 UTC on 7780 kHz. There are many other times and frequencies when Wavescan can be heard on WRMI, so I added a link in the description of this video to the WRMI schedule where you can see them all. Wavescan can reportedly also be heard on WWCR, although I haven't been able to find a current listing and time. And it can also be heard on IRRS on Sundays at 1430 and 2330 UTC. This is via streaming on the IRRS website. There is a link to the IRRS website in the description of this video, so you can stream Wavescan there if you like. It is also available on various podcasting sites. The BBC World Service received an increase in its government grant this past week, after executives at the broadcaster warned that the BBC is struggling to counter what it calls Russian and Chinese propaganda. The British Treasury confirmed last week that it was providing an increase in funding to the corporation's international service, BBC World Service, for 2025 and 2026, but it did not state the exact amount. The BBC, in response to the announcement, said in a brief statement on its website on the 30th of October, which is the day of the announcement, "We warmly welcome the announcement of enhanced funding. We are pleased the government has acknowledged the strong case for investing in the World Service. As the world's most trusted broadcaster, we are in a unique position to lead the global news and information market. Today's announcement will enable us to maintain all of our existing language services, to continue fighting disinformation around the world, and to provide emergency information services to those in crisis. This is as we have recently done in Gaza, Sudan, and Ukraine." Associated Press reports that a Polish radio station has ended an experiment that involved using AI-generated presenters instead of real journalists after the move sparked an outcry. I reported in a previous episode of my podcast series that OFF Radio Krakow relaunched 2 weeks ago using virtual characters created by AI as its presenters, after dismissing its human presenters. Across Poland, people were angry, expressing fears that humans were being replaced by AI. The station's editor, Marcin Pulit, said in a statement this past Monday that the aim had been to spark a debate about artificial intelligence and that it had succeeded. He said the experiment had been meant to last 3 months, but that it saw no reason to go on. So that's the end of AI as radio presenters at this station in Krakow. I have lots of frequency news today. The B24 schedules kicked in this past weekend on the 27th of October. There is always a bit of confusion during the changeover. with most of the online shortwave databases taking a while to be updated with all the changes. The site shortwavedb.org has been updated, but not completely yet. However, I saw a great new feature on shortwavedb.org, and that is that the site now shows transmitter power, which is very useful when you want to know the power of the signals that you are trying to catch. The website Shortwave Info has also been updated now as of the time of recording this podcast on the 3rd of November. So let's move on to some of the news listings and changes. There is a new listing in the HFCC schedules for Radio Onda, a music radio station based in Belgium. Its programs are in Portuguese. Radio Onda is listed in the HFCC schedules on 6140, 9530, 15190, and 25850 kHz from a 1 kilowatt transmitter in, interestingly, Luxembourg at a place called Jungliste. It is listed as transmitting 24 hours, but these transmissions have not started yet. The licensing process is still underway in Luxembourg, and as soon as that has been completed, the station will start transmitting. This would be a welcome return to shortwave for Luxembourg. Radio Onda does already transmit on shortwave, according to the station's website, from a city called Borculo in the Netherlands. It says that the shortwave station is a different station to the FM and DAB Plus station that is based in Brussels. The current shortwave frequencies are 6140, 9530, and 17820 kHz, so some overlap with the planned frequencies in Luxembourg. The station's website says that these transmissions currently on shortwave are irregular, but that it hopes to present more fixed programming on shortwave in the future, which seems to explain the planned Luxembourg transmissions. Several private radio stations appeared in Finland this year on shortwave. Scandinavia Weekend Radio is a well-known Finnish station that has been transmitting for some time. The 3 new stations that appeared this year are Radio Pico, Realmix Radio, and Radio Blacksmith Knoll. 2 of these are now on air again after having renewed their broadcasting licenses in Finland. Radio Blacksmith Knoll announced that it would start broadcasting from the 2nd of November on 6120 kHz. Transmissions will be on Saturdays or Sundays from 1800 to 2000 UTC. If you don't hear them at this time, also check from 2100 to 2300 UTC and from 0305 to 1200 UTC. These times are listed as alternative times on the Radio Blacksmith Knoll website. The frequency again, 6120 kHz. The station says on its website, nestled in our vintage basement studio, we bring you a unique radio experience, crafted both from public domain treasures and latest hits from the present day. Picture the warm glow of analog equipment, the hum of classic tunes, and the charm of timeless stories filling the airwaves. Our curious operator, always ready with a smile and a microphone, guides you through a world where nostalgia meets innovation. Realmix Radio, also from Finland, has also restarted transmissions every weekend on either 6185 or 6195 kHz. They use both these frequencies depending on conditions. Transmissions are from 1000 UTC on Saturdays to 1900 UTC on Sundays. It uses a low-power transmitter, 100 watts only, in a place called Raasepori in the south of Finland. It is run by the 17-year-old Joachim Wekstrom. The station has been heard all around Europe and as far away as Australia. Another rather unique station to monitor is Aqui Radio Andorra. It is a station that transmits once a month only. You can hear it during the B24 season on the first Sunday of every month, usually between 1700 and 1900 UTC on 6005 kHz, and between 2000 and 2200 UTC on 3985 kHz. The transmission on 6005 kHz is the stronger one, using a 10 kilowatt transmitter. As I reported in another video on my channel, I also encountered 2 unfortunate clashes of some big broadcasting names. Radio Slovakia, WRN, and Radio Prague appear to be using the same frequency as the BBC, between 1730 and 1900 UTC. This is on 12095 kHz. Radio Slovakia, Radio Prague, and WRN target Russia at this time, and the transmitter is in the UAE. The BBC transmissions at this time target East Africa from Santa Maria di Galleria.
However, it seems as if this clash, which I found in the HFCC schedules, has been sorted out. The website shortwave.info lists Radio Prague, Radio Slovakia, and WRN as transmitting on 11785 kHz and not 12095 kHz, so not the same frequency as the BBC. These transmissions start at 1500 UTC and end at 1700 UTC, except on Sundays when there is an additional hour from 1700 to 1800. First up is Radio Prague from 15 to 1530. Then it is WRN from 1530 to 1700, which includes Radio Slovakia between 1630 and 1700. And then on Sundays, it ends with an hour from the BBC in Russian between 1700 and 1800. So at least this clash has been sorted out.
Another clash is Vatican Radio and Republic of Yemen Radio. Vatican Radio is now using 11935 kHz, which is a long-time Republic of Yemen radio frequency. I heard both Vatican Radio and Yemen Radio at 1850 UTC on this frequency during the week. Vatican Radio is listed on this frequency from 1630 to 1730 and from 1940 to 2000 UTC. These are all times when Yemen Radio is also on air on 11935. The Vatican Radio transmission between 1630 and 1700 is in Arabic, targeting the Middle East, so this is the same target area as Yemen Radio. I found a very interesting radio-related podcast program that you might want to listen to. It is about Radio Free Europe, Radio Liberty, Voice of America, and their role in the Cold War. Sounds very interesting. I added a link to this podcast in the description of this video if you want to listen. It talks about the important role of these US AGM radio stations and Voice of America around the world. I have a reception report from Robert in Oakland, Tennessee today. He used a Texan PL330 receiver and a 5.3 meter wire antenna. These are the stations he received. On 15 October, China Radio International at 2355 UTC on 17880 kHz in Portuguese from Beijing, SINPO of 33333. On 16 October, Radio France International at 1744 UTC on 21580 kHz in French from Issoudun, SINPO 34443. On 16 October, Radio Nacional da Amazonia at 2324 UTC on 11780 kHz. This is in Portuguese from Brasilia, SINPO 44544. On 17 October, Radio Romania International at 0007 UTC on 11620 kHz. This was in English from Tiganesti, SINPO of 54434. On 17 October, NHK World Radio Japan at 0202 UTC on 6105 kHz. This was in Japanese from Issoudun, SINPO of 54534. On 17 October, Voice of Africa at 1737 UTC on 17530 kHz. This was in English from Greenville, North Carolina, SINPO of 53444. On the 19th of October, Radio France at 1719 UTC on 17850 kHz in French from Issoudun, SINPO of 43434. Then on the 20th of October, we received the following three stations: China Radio International at 0030 UTC on 15125 kHz in English from Beijing, SINPO of 33433. Radio Romania International at 0152 UTC on 11620 kHz in French from Tiganesti, SINPO of 43333, and CFRX Toronto at 0206 UTC on 6070 kHz in English from Toronto, SINPO of 54334. On the 21st of October, the following three stations: the BBC at 1402 UTC on 25700 kHz in Hausa from Santa Maria di Galleria, SINPO of 54544. Voice of Turkey at 1538 UTC on 17815 kHz in Turkish from Emirlir, SINPO of 33333. And Radio Exterior de España at 2209 UTC on 17715 kHz in English from Noblejas, SINPO of 44434. Then on 22 October, China Radio International at 1540 UTC on 17735 kHz in Chinese from Kashi Saibach, SINPO 44434. On 23 October, China Radio International at 1315 UTC on 15590 kHz in English from Urumqi, SINPO of 34433. And on 24 October, Voice of America at 2010 UTC on 15580 kHz in English from Selebi Pikwe in Botswana, SINPO 33323. Thank you to Robert for that reception report. Please do feel free to send me your reception reports. I will give you the contact details again at the end of this program. So, to end, a brief propagation outlook based on forecasts from the NOAA's Space Weather Prediction Center. The sun has been very active over the past week. Geomagnetic activity in the ionosphere is expected to be high from the 2nd to the 4th of November due to increased solar wind because of the effects of coronal hole high-speed streams. The effects of a coronal mass ejection event that happened on the 31st of October will also reach Earth by 3 November. The K-index is expected to rise to 4 between 2 and 4 November, and then drop down to 2 and lower again from the 4th of November onwards. The expectation is that solar activity will remain active for the entire week, although geomagnetic activity in the ionosphere will become a bit more settled from 5 November onwards. So in plain English, the sun is expected to be very active this week, which affects the ionosphere and propagation. In the shortwave bands, lower frequencies may be harder to hear, but higher frequencies may be stronger. There is a link in the description of this podcast to a website called Ham Radio for non-techies with clear and simple propagation charts that you can refer to for the latest HF propagation conditions on a daily basis, as conditions can change quite suddenly. That's all for today then. Please send me your news items and reception reports so that I can share them here. If you would like to share reception reports, please tell me your location, the radio you used, the stations and frequencies you received, and please provide SINPO or SIO codes for the signals you received. You can contact me at andre9@duck.com with reception reports or any other news you would like to share. That is ANDRE, the number 9, @duck.com. Happy listening, everyone.